Hi people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new video. I decided to make a video about my favorite middle grade books with non-binary main characters because recently the House of Representatives passed the Protect the Innocent Children Act, which would criminalize gender-affirming care, particularly for transgender children, but also for cisgender children, and it also bans the education of gender-affirming care, which I think is so disrespectful and so transphobic and so unfair, and I think that everyone deserves gender-affirming care, especially if you're transgender, because I think that transgender people deserve the right to exist and to live as freely as they are, if that makes any sense. So with that said, I think that queer representation is so incredibly important, especially for children, for people of all ages, to get the opportunity to explore their gender identity as freely as they wish. And that's why I think that representation is so important, because it normalizes queer youth. So anyway, with that said, as everyone knows, I'm an ally of the transgender community, and I always will be. So without any further ado, the first book on this list is called Anna on the Edge. This story is a middle grade contemporary and follows a young non-binary main character who is navigating their gender identity through ice skating, which is historically a very segregated sport, as all sports, honestly, because all sports, if you didn't know, are often categorized into male and female, and then you have to participate in the category that best fits, I guess, your birth sex, which I think is so unfair. First of all, at the start of it, I don't think that we should segregate sports by that binary system. But anyway, I digress. This book was so good and so fantastic and so awesome. I loved the representation. I loved the plot and the characters and everything. I think this book is absolutely so fantastic, and it's again so relevant and so important. When I read this book maybe 5 years ago or something like that, I thought it was so good and so well done. To the fact that I still remember it 5 years later speaks volumes, especially since I read, as you know, hundreds and hundreds of books each year. So I've practically read, I don't know, 1,000 books since 2020. Anyway, all that to say, this book is absolutely so fantastic, and it's so lovely and so wonderful, and it's so necessary. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Ollie in Between. This story is a middle grade contemporary following a young main character who is navigating their gender identity and figuring out their non-binary identity when asked to write an essay on how to define womanhood, which I think is so fascinating because there is no one set definition of womanhood, and it's so incredibly subjective. And I think this book is so excellent. It was definitely one of my most anticipated releases for 2025, and it exceeded those expectations because I rated this book 5 stars back at the beginning of this year. I thought it was so good and so excellent and so well done. I loved the characters, the plot, and the exploration of gender identity and everything. I think this book is so fantastic and it's so good, and it deserves so much more hype. I feel like nobody is talking about this book, although, as we all know, I think that middle grade in itself is dying. I think that middle grade is not as popular as it used to be, but especially when it comes to queer representation and middle grade contemporary and everything. But anyway, I think this book is so fantastic and so excellent and so important and just so awesome. I loved the characters and the story and the plot and everything that happened. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Jude Saves the World. This story is a middle grade contemporary following a non-binary main character who is navigating friendship and identity. I think this book is so excellent and it's so well done. And I think this book is so happy and wholesome. And those books are so incredibly important, especially for queer children, but also just for children in general, as they learn that sometimes the world is not very kind. But, that's a skill issue. You should be kind to everyone all the time. So anyway, I digress. I think this book is excellent. I think it's fantastic. I love the characters and the plot and the queerness and everything. I love this book so much, and this book really drives home the importance of safe spaces, of supportive families, of found families, of friendship and identity and everything, and all those things are so incredibly important. And it's so well catered to its audience, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I think this book is excellent, and it's wholesome, and it's wonderful, and it's so splendid. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Best Liars of Riverview, or is it In Riverview? Anyway, this book is a middle-grade contemporary following a young, non-binary main character who is navigating identity and friendship as they look for their missing best friend. I think this book is so fantastic, and it's so good. I love stories that are about like self-discovery and growing up and acceptance, because I think it's so important, especially for young people. Like, this book made me feel so seen and understood. One of my favorite parts about reading middle grade and why I read it so often is because like I relate so much to these young people, and I relate more to them than I do to characters my age so often. Or maybe characters my age are not written super well. Anyway, all that to say, I thought this book was so good and so awesome and so well done. I loved the characters and the story and the plot and the queerness and everything. I think this book is excellent, and it's so fantastic, and it's so good. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Camp Prodigy. This story is a middle-grade contemporary graphic novel that follows two non-binary main characters who are navigating identity and anxiety at their summer orchestra camp. First of all, I love a summer camp setting. Second of all, I love a story with musical elements as someone who grew up playing piano for 12 years. Like, I love this book so much. The illustrations are so pretty and so vivid and so well done. Like, the artist is so incredibly talented. Second of all, the story itself is so fantastic and so wonderful. I loved the two main characters. I loved their friendship and their individual identities. And I also loved the exploration of like gender. Like, I think this book is so fantastic, and it's so good, and I love it so much. I think this book is so underrated, and it deserves so much more hype. I think everything about it was so fantastic and so well done and so well paced. I love the plot and the story and the characters and the setting and everything. This book is fantastic. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The last book on this list, and certainly not the least, is called Upstaged. This story is a middle-grade contemporary graphic novel that follows a young non-binary main character whose last summer at theater camp does not necessarily go the way that they expect. I think this book was so fantastic and so good. First of all, like I mentioned earlier, I love books at a summer camp setting because it eliminates like the presence of parents or the presence of like almost society in school, and it gives people the opportunity and freedom to explore anything and everything that they could want. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I thought this book was so fantastic and so good. Second of all, I also love a theater camp as someone who grew to appreciate theater as an adult. Like, I think theater is such an awesome safe space, especially for queer people. I think this book is excellent. Speaking of the queerness, I thought the representation was spot on and excellent and well done. This book isn't necessarily about being non-binary. The non-binary representation and the queer representation in general is just casually incorporated into the story and into the plot, and I think that those stories are also so incredibly important and necessary, as well as the importance of characters figuring out their non-binary identity, which was maybe unknown to them before, if that makes any sense, just to show like different journeys and different experiences in general. But anyway, I think this book is so fantastic and so good. I love the illustrations and the plot and the characters and the friendship and everything. Like, I think this book is so fantastic and so good. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. So first of all, I understand that just because a bill passes in the House of Representatives does not necessarily mean that it will automatically pass in Senate, nor that the president will approve of it necessarily. But honestly, I don't have hope for the US government and how it stands on transgender rights in the past, and our president has been historically transphobic, so I feel as if he approves of this bill. So anyway, in conclusion, as per usual, I'm an ally to the trans community. I understand that pronouns don't equal gender. I understand that gender identity is a spectrum, and I understand that all people deserve the right to healthcare, to love, to value, and they deserve a spot and a safe place in our community. So anyway, with that said, if you enjoy this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the penguin emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. I really hope this video helps diversify your bookshelf. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!